I'm back with another song from my JRPG soundtrack project, and today it's a field theme. You know, a classic beginning area with lush green grass, big mountains, and a random level 80 enemy that kills you in one hit. So first I came up with this chord progression on staccato violins and double bass. You can already feel the adventurousness. Is that even a word? Next I came up with this tom beat on the drums. And finally I have more violins doing the lead. And also some piano in the background. Next I amp up the drums with some hi-hats and snares, and also throw in some trombones in the rhythm section. The low brass really increases the bigness, if that makes any sense. I also throw the violin lead over to the flutes. For this next section, I slow down the chord progression a bit. And I also dial back the drums. And finally, I came up with this lead on piano, as well as a counter melody on flute. And altogether it sounds like this. And then for this section, I wanted to lower the energy a bunch, so I traded out the trombones and staccato violins for some violas and piano. I went really simple with the drums, but also added some maracas and bongos for percussion. And finally, I threw this lead on the solo viola. After that, I bring the energy right back up. So I bring back the trombones, the lead violins, and I amp up the drums a bunch too. And finally we get to the chorus. So I basically bring everything back for the rhythm section. I have double bass, violas, trombone, and staccato violins. I also threw in this weird note here, just for fun. I came up with this little background melody for the French horns. And finally, I came up with the lead on piano and violins. Man, doesn't that just make you want to go spend 5 hours grinding on level 4 enemies? I also end up giving that lead to the flute too. After the chorus, I change up the chord progression and also change the rhythm on these staccato violins for a bit more of a calmer feel. I also came up with these drums with kind of weird timings. And finally, I gave the lead to piano and French horns. After that, the song loops, but to maintain interest, I go into a calmer, more piano-heavy variation of the first section. You know, if you're gonna be walking around in this area for so long, you want to make sure the music doesn't get too repetitive. For that same reason, I swap out the flute countermelody for a viola for this section. And then I swap the viola for the flute in this section. Pretty neat. And then instead of going back into the chorus, I actually go into this calmer sort of bridge section. You know, I've got the standard string section and then piano on rhythm. And then I threw in this lead on French horns, piano, and violin. Altogether it sounds like this. I also end up putting that lead on the flute. Again. And then after a short transition, we finally get back to the chorus. And this time, to make it feel more special, I guess, I just kind of went nuts on the drums. And I also throw in some choir on the lead for some extra flavor. I also come in later with some bass choir as well. And then I also keep the choir going through this section, just as a little treat for me. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole song. So the only thing left to do now is give it a listen.